Alrighty, what's up, fellow deathbats, lady deathbats, fellow gamers, and lady gamers? Welcome into Deathbat Nation. Now, in this video, I'm taking you back even further into my music history and how I really got into music. Now, I've been re-listening to this band, but I also realized and totally kind of forgot there was another band that was kind of like, so a band member got kicked out of them, the original band, and he went off and he's been redoing music from the original group he was a part of. Now, let me just take you over to who this band is. And there's an album they have out I want to compare. I just want to put side by side and show you guys that I used to listen to these guys before I listened to this band. So let's just take a look at them. Alrighty, so this is where everything in music kind of started for me. I liked bands like Disturbed. I liked them, but I wasn't into them. Like, this really just hit me. But this band, CKY, this was a lot of what I listened to growing up while I was in high school. There was something I just really liked about them, and I think it was because they weren't exactly mainstream. I have a lot of problems with like mainstream music sometimes, and just the stuff that everybody tends to like. I don't really get into it. Like, every now and then I'll be like, yeah, that sounds good, but and it'll be a mainstream song and I'll be like, it doesn't hit home for me as much as something that is original. And CKY is kind of original. If you really listen to their sound back in the day, you can kind of see what I like now. They are still making music, and this song right here was the latest song they released. It's good, but it's not CKY to me anymore. Deron was the lead singer. Deron was CKY. Oh, he was the original lead singer to CKY, and then once they kind of like, when Deron left CKY, he did go on to make another band, which we'll look at here in a second. But I want to continue to stay on topic with these guys and talk more about these guys and how everything started for me with music. Now, there is a song that everybody knows them by that, it's very well known by them. So I'm not going to play it because of copyright purposes, but let's just pull it up. So CKY originally did a song called 96 White Bitter Beings, which very catchy song, and I'm trying to learn it on guitar right now. I was trying to learn it back then on the bass, but it's a tricky riff. Let's just say that. Like, you have to play the opening 4 times, and then sometimes you'll get hung up on the strings, and I'll get it past it. I'm not doubting myself, but I'm going back to this page. Staying right here. This song, I originally heard it from, I think, Tony Hawk, Pro Skater 2. And that kept me attracted and made me want to listen to this song a little bit more. And then it led me to wanting to continue to see what the band was about, I guess. It made me explore into what they were really about. I did watch the videos. The videos don't really hold a great memory, but it was a lot of stunt videos they did because they were into skateboarding. I myself was into skateboarding. I wasn't as good as most people, but I was still into it. And Bam Margera he was a part of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, and then that became a thing where I watched his show on TV. And around that time, I also got into CKY. I listened to a little bit of him, which was still a part of that whole genre of stuff. For some reason, it was a mix of like a group, just an entire group. But the main core group was CKY. It all started with some stunt videos that were like, you could only actually purchase them from the internet, and then Jackass came out, and then they took off on MTV. But that's a whole different story for another time. But the band, I really liked the sound of the band, and I did go see CKY years and years ago live. My dad took me to see them. That was my first actual concert I went to. I met Chad, who is the lead singer of CKY now. Very awesome dude, very good at playing guitar, but again, CKY just isn't the same without that other aspect of the sound. And Deron did some vocals that were so abstract that I was like, it just kept me dragged in for what they were going with. They were going with a really abstract, dark, eerie sound, which is what a lot of the music I like is today. So if you haven't noticed, take with a little bit of insight, listen to bands. I listen to a lot of the bands I listen to today. They are they're not inspired by this, but they are very similar to what this band here was about. And this was the start of like the whole it wasn't emo, but it was like a really grungy, dark punk music, and that's what made me really like the band for some reason. There's something about the dark lyrics and the way the music was played just really, really set well with me, and I really liked it. So let's hop over to the next part. So this is where the fun's going to begin, okay? So this album here was the one that just really, really was their shining moment. The second album they've ever released, which is Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild, was like one of my top listened to albums back then. I picked that up and I had that thing and I sit in my room with it playing in the background when the days of the internet were just earlier, web browsing was unique, and I'd sit on AIM and stuff like that, and AOL and just Yahoo, and talk to a bunch of random people. My whole screen name was CKY Punk 30. That's how much of a fan I was of them. And that was on Yahoo, by the way. But yeah, I really enjoyed this whole album. It's because of its sound. Now, I have a few favorite songs off of this album. I'm not reviewing this album, but we're going to get into the album I'm going to review. But I really like from this album, and Deron didn't redo some of the songs over there, but Escape from Hellview, I'm going to say if you're into the really metal-y sounding music, that's a metal song. That's a really metal-y sounding song. It's a very dark song. It tells a story about people who just get caught in the woods and just end up getting massacred because. And then the video recording of it was dangerous too, because Chad here, I had a whole behind the scenes footage of it, and Chad actually decided to try to hang himself in the making of the video. It was just dangerous, but he did it and they let him go and he was fine. So yeah, so there are a lot of songs I like off here, but specifically Plastic Plan is one of them. That I used to play that on bass all the time. Anybody who knew me knew I liked that song and knew I was good at that song and knew I practiced that song over and over and over again just to get it right. But I'd play it from beginning to end, and it was just fun to play. The Plastic Plan, Frenetic Amnastic, I like the way that one is. That one's very good. Attached at the Hips, very good. All these songs are very good. There's just certain ones I like more. So Sporadic Movement is a very, very aggressive, like metal-y song. So yeah, if this is a mix of two sounds in one kind of, and this is what inspired me to listen to other types of music. So, and Close Yet Far is a very, very, I want to say it was kind of an emo song back in the day. It was a song about a guy who he basically, he was treated a certain way, and being treated a certain way, he didn't have very many people close to him. I can relate to that because, people, but I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I can kind of relate to what that song is about. So, but yeah, there's an Inhuman Creation Station, very, very good song. So, we're going to come back to this one, okay? So, this is the other album that Deron, being in the other band, he did something apart. He did something with it. And I'll explain here in a second what he did. But this was the other album that really, really, they just kept them afloat, and they were still good at that time. And I'll show you one of their very last albums they just kind of drifted off in, which was actually, it's still really good for what it is. So, so a lot of these here, I really like Dressed in Decay and Familiar Realm. There's a whole bunch of songs in here. I remember listening to this album over and over and over too. So Don't Hold Your Breath was another one I tried to learn on bass. I actually tried to learn a lot of their music because I was just a huge fan of them. And they have, like I said, again, they had a unique sound. So I remember getting this album, and then I remember like getting a Sum 41 album. This is not. Does this look infected? I point at that because that's what the image was. But does this look infected? Was the album that came out around that time that I do remember I picked up, and I think it was that, and this album, and I think it was that, and Simple Plan came out with an album. So I really like the pop punk, and the punk grunge punk, which is CKY. But I do remember playing these I do remember listening to this in my dad's car. My dad's car. My dad actually took me to see the first concert with them. So, but that's a little history on these guys, CKY, and that's where my taste in music actually stems from. So, and then I just recently remembered Deron, the lead singer of CKY, came and made a band called 96 Bitter Beings, which is a band that was made because he pretty much got kicked out of CKY after Carver Bay, I think it was, which is an album I'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, he went off and made this band here, which if you go back and look at the other two albums, you can see that some of the tracks he re-recorded and he put them on this album here. Now, this album, I was listening to this multiple times today. This album's really good, and I'll review this after it's done. But I started listening to these guys because of the fact they had the sound that I really liked in CKY that carried over to this band. CKY doesn't have that sound anymore. Still have love for CKY, but it's just not what it used to be. They used to have 2 guitar players, 1 bassist, and a drummer, and they kind of don't have that extra guitar player, so right now they're kind of struggling in that area, and that's why I don't listen to them as much. But yes, this album here is based off of these 2 albums. So this album right here, An Answer Can Be Found, and Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild, he specifically names it after like songs they did in the past. So when he was in CKY, as you notice, he has a lot of songs here that are actually on that album, and you will notice that if you look at it. Like, I believe the first. So okay, let me point out what's going on here. So, all right, Flesh in the Gear. That's from Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild. He remastered that. Sing It to the Underground. He remastered that. That's from Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild. Shock and Terror, Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild. Inhumane Creation Station, Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild. And then the second half of the album is stuff from An Answer Can Be Found, which, again, that was their second best album CKY released at that time. But as you can see, all these last ones, and then Shippensburg is just on their CKY Gem album. So now you can see there's influence from CKY in 96 Bitter Beings, and specifically with the name of itself and the name of the album, because the first, Escape from Hellview was the name of this album right here, and that's Deron right there playing. But as you can see, he's even in this image over here. But yeah, I have a lot of favorite songs off here. For me, my favorite songs off of this album, and if you go back and listen to this album, you won't probably understand what my taste in music is. I want to say Sink It to the Underground, Flesh in the Gear, Attached at the Hip, Frenetic and Acid is really up there for me. That's a 10 out of a 10 song for me. I was actually singing Attached at the Hip the other day on my other channel. Plastic Plan, that's a 10 out of a 10 for me. And so is Sporadic Movement. So those are 3 songs I actually really like off of this album. And there's a lot of songs I wish Deron would redo off of this album, because I think he just could have actually redone this whole album with his new band, and it would have been perfect. An Answer Can Be Found. I like a lot of the songs here, but it doesn't stand out as much as Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild. Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild is just that album of albums for CKY. Now, I do like songs off here. Don't Hold Your Breath is actually good. It's a good slower song. Familiar Realm, and Dressed in Decay. Actually, these are two I really like. I mean, three I really like off of that album. Triple Manic State's good. And that's pretty much a lot of just these. This here is a combination of the two albums, so that's why I really liked it. And then if you go back into listening to CKY, which you'll see why I like a lot of stuff. The Carver City, I thought it was Carver Bay, but Carver City is a really good album. I suggest listening to it. Volume 1 is a bit sketchy. It has a lot of songs that I like, and then a lot I can't. It's just a really sketchy album. It was their first work, so you know how bands are. They come out with their first work, and not everything's good, but it's enough to get them through the door and their foot through the door. Answer Can Be Found is good. And then Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild was a really good album. I didn't really listen to this one because I was kind of like not listening to CKY at the time. But this was my rediscovery of the band itself, and just remembering they existed recently because of a song I started singing over on the other channel. And then the Rarities album, that is a really good album too. That has a lot of like songs they didn't have on their actual albums. Like Afterworld is really good by the way. That's another one that's played really unique. But my all-time favorite songs from CKY, 96 White Bitter Beings and Shippensburg. Shippensburg is based on a city I used to live near, actually, in the state of Pennsylvania. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, and that's how I knew about these guys. They lived in a city called Westchester, Pennsylvania, which I never got to meet them, fortunately. Actually, no, I did. I met Chad from the band here itself. But yeah, CKY was always good. I still have love for CKY, but I'm liking 96 Bitter Beings a little bit more right now because of the sound they put off. And as you can see here, they actually did 96 White Bitter Beings, which it's a good version. It's a little bit more clean than what the other sound was. It does match the other version, but I will say maybe the original version is still shines. Now Shippensburg, the version he did of Shippensburg in 96 Bitter Being, that is a 10 out of 10 for me, and I marked that on my channel here. Actually, I reviewed it recently, and so I also have been listening to some of the what he released, and I didn't listen to Campaign yet, but I did listen to Synergy Restored, and I listened to some of Synergy Restored. I listened to this like 3 times because I freaking missed their old music, and then I listened to this one. So yeah, that's a little history of me and this band, and why I just really liked this band back then. So all right, let me get back to the big screen. I'm also gonna rate Return to Hellview for you guys and tell you how I feel about it. So let's get over to it. All right, so now that we're in the outro part of the video, I'm going to rate the album Return to Hellview by 96 Bitter Beings as a 10 out of 10. This is a little bit of a late review, but I wanted to get into the history of the band and why I enjoyed the band so much. So this is going to be on my Deathbat Nation channel because that's where I'm talking about music and all that. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for this album. I really enjoyed it, and I listened to it 3 times a day. If I'm listening to it more than once, and you know, and just enjoying what it is, and if it sounds good, because I'm gonna go and listen to it again at some point. I will admit that I'll probably listen to it like a bunch of times before I like get tired of it. But I am going to continue to listen to 96 Bitter Beings. But yeah, there you go. There you have it. Yeah, if you're really interested, check the bands out. I do suggest checking them out. They may open up a door they may open up a sound of music for you never heard before. It's up, just check them out. That's all I gotta say. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, and take it easy, fellow deathbats, lady deathbats, fellow gamers, and lady gamers, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. I don't know when it is, but I'm going to be try to do more album reviews here. This one was an album review, but this was a little bit of a different album review. So, all right, take it easy and rock on.